In the last few years, unaccountable puzzling events have been taking place on the outskirts of Milan in Italy. Unidentified aircraft hover just in front of the windows of an anonymous house. The phenomenon keeps reoccurring with a high frequency. A young man films them with his camera, producing UFO footage absolutely unique in history. The image quality, the length of the footage, and the different types of objects astonish the experts. What is happening? Who are the mysterious visitors? An extraordinary event that stimulates the interest of experts all over the world. A new enigma to solve. The Urzi Case, a mystery in the skies of Italy. It is certainly not very common for people to have the extraordinary experience of spotting and filming a UFO. Even less frequent are those who can do it repeatedly. Antonio Urzi is one of them. The number of objects he has sighted is very large, having collected almost 100 films. Also, it is not just the amount of evidence that makes this case unique in its genre. There is also the unusual closeness of the aircraft, the impressive high quality of the images, and the appearance of multi-shaped UFOs.
Ho filmato molte tipologie di oggetti.
I've been shooting many types of objects, from flying saucers with metal surfaces to spheres, tubular objects, as well as many other types already sighted all over the world.
Antonio got his first camera in August 2003. It was an old analog Video 8 camcorder, good enough to catch the mysterious visitors on tape. Actually, Antonio has been sighting UFOs since he was a child, but only that year he decided to capture them. The first objects he filmed were well-known spheres of light, sighted all over the world and also in space. But soon afterwards, more interesting objects started to appear, like this extraordinary shiny cigar-shaped UFO captured in daylight. Film that resembles other sightings in Italy and abroad. Another well-known type of unidentified objects are the triangular crafts. They became famous throughout the world after the large number of sightings that occurred in Belgium in 1989. As soon as Antonio got his camera, they started appearing almost immediately. In fact, the first footage dates back to October 2003, and it's completely identical to the craft shot in Belgium. Afterwards, Antonio caught them again, filming other videos of very high interest. Where do these objects come from? At that time, the Belgian army declared that they did not exclude the extraterrestrial hypothesis. This statement caused a worldwide sensation. The triangular UFO was chased by fighter planes, but they could do nothing as the unidentified aircraft passed from 280 to 1,700 kilometers an hour in just 1 second. Such an increase in speed would kill any pilot, because human beings can only tolerate acceleration 5 times less than that. The extraordinary nature of Urzi's experience was evident from the first series of videos, but this was just the beginning. In the following months, the quality of his films improved remarkably.
Since 2004, namely from June, I have been sighting the same metallic objects that I used to see when I was a child.
The fact occurred on the 4th of June 2004. The UFO was very close, definitely metallic. They seldomly come so close to a camcorder. The filmed sequence shows a light sphere circling around the flying saucer. According to the experts, it might be a remotely operated test probe, a rather common element in UFO sightings. According to analysts, the hull should be at least 7 to 9 meters across. Unfortunately, the lack of reference points makes it difficult to calculate the exact dimensions.
Dall'estate del 2003, dal momento in cui acquisto questa videocamera e inizio a filmare, Non avevo alcuna intenzione di...
In summer 2003, when I bought the camera and started filming, I did not mean to show my films, as they were meant for my personal records. When these objects appeared so close to me with their metallic surfaces, my only intention was to catch their details. I didn't care at all about filming the surroundings.
It has also to be considered that the position where Antonio films is not very comfortable. Most of the filming is from the small windows on the roof of the small loft where he lives with his fiancée, Simona. The sloped windows are pivoted in the middle, and Antonio has worked out a solution to fix the shutters. Moreover, from his small window, he has got a limited view over the sky. So it seems incredible that UFOs may literally pose, making a sort of performance, allowing him to film. However, when an object appears to Antonio all of a sudden, as if it were there for him, he gets so concerned about filming that he just holds the shutters with his own hand. The position makes filming even more difficult. Sometimes, Antonio has got enough time to go to Simona's grandmother's flat, where he can film more comfortably from a small balcony. Meanwhile, the visitors come back for him. It was about 7:30 a.m. when a bronze-like metallic object appeared. There was an unusual silence while Antonio was filming the strange movements of the disc. It's remarkable when the hull tilts so that the bottom clearly mirrors the sun. This phenomenon happened again during the same month. In the new extraordinary video, the object seems to be a cross among the sightings of the American George Adamski, the Swiss Billy Meyer, and the Hispano-American Paul Vila. Unlike previously, in this footage there are clouds in the sky, so that one can better appreciate the motion of the craft. The video has also a further reference point, the window frame. At the end, the disc went out of sight, and when Urzi zoomed out, you can see the small portion of sky where the object revealed itself. Analyzing the frames of this exceptional footage, on the side of the shiny craft, you can notice some dark round areas similar to portholes. Filmed UFO evidence has hardly ever been that sharp. 20 days later, the big metallic discs made themselves evident.
Bellissimo, cavolo.
The maneuvers of the object were like the previous videos, but after a few seconds, it disappeared. Urzi zoomed out, and the window was visible again.
Dov'è? È andato via.
This time, Antonio had a surprise.
Eccolo. Ma è diverso questo.
As soon as the disc reappeared, it was totally different from before. The footage remained out of focus for a long time, but because of the clouds, the fluctuations of the saucer became clearer. Afterwards, the second UFO disappeared too. A few months elapsed before the reappearance of objects at close range.
Aspetta, Come lo zoomate a fuoco, che è esagerato.
It was 40 minutes past midnight when he noticed an object that drew his attention.
Troppo bello, amore. Vieni a vedere, corri. È color ambra.
The disc stood out very clearly in the night sky. At a certain moment, much to his surprise, the object started to repeatedly light up with a particular violet light.
Fa le luci viola.
I don't know if this was due to its own light or to a reflection, since you primarily notice the circular shape of the object and this light rotating around the bottom and the top.
An unusual event for UFO footage. About 30 minutes after Antonio zoomed out, and you could see the nearby buildings, an important reference which also shows the setting where the event took place. The UFO had gone very far, yet it remained visible but blurry. The sighting lasted more than 40 minutes, a long and unusual duration for a UFO shooting. 9 days after, exactly at the same time of the previous video, at 0:40 AM, another flying object appeared. The shape was different from all the others he had seen till that moment. The color was bronze amber, and it was more visible than the previous night's UFO.
You can see an amber-coloured object hovering with a very light background due to foggy weather that night.
The bottom of the hull reflected the light of the football field below, and the reflection changed according to the movements of the object. Also, when filming at night, Antonio's film stands out for the clear and detailed pictures. It took only a few days before another metallic disc would go so close to Urzi's camera. It happened exactly on the 3rd of December 2004. Depending on its position, it reflected the city lights underneath. Its black color was also original. The aircraft carried on its maneuvers in front of the camera for about 5 minutes. This footage closed a year of sightings of the greatest importance. At the time, Antonio used to film when he was not at work.
So it could have been at night, very late in the evening, in the morning before going to work, or in lunch breaks.
The recurrent coincidence of Antonio's spare time with the visitor's appearance is another important element. It suggests that there is an interaction between the phenomenon and the person filming it, an indication of an intelligent and intentional project.
After years of filming, I deduced that these objects clearly intend to make sure that their shapes and features are well visible and detailed. I can figure it out by looking at their motion in the air. We are facing an intelligent phenomenon that wants to interact with us.
Meanwhile, Antonio met the independent researcher Giuseppe Garofalo and became friends with him. He has been the first person to study Antonio's experience, the first to seriously believe and support him. He asked to analyze the films, even though he was convinced of the authenticity of the videos and of Antonio's experience.
I came to the conclusion that they are 100% original and authentic. First of all, the videos have no hint of computer-aided graphic tampering. Moreover, I know very well the background where Antonio films. I know his habits, the instruments and means he uses.
Studying such a unique case, borderline with science fiction, cannot entail just footage and instrumental analysis. It is very important to know also the character's life background, the environment where he was brought up, and the testimony of family and friends. Today, Antonio lives in the suburbs of Milan, but he was born and grew up in Livorno. It is in this Tuscan city that his family still lives, his father, his mother, and his brother. Since Antonio was a child, he used to call his parents as soon as he sighted strange objects in the sky.
I remember his experience started very early. I think he was just 5 or 6 years old when he told me he saw these luminous objects. But sometimes you don't pay attention to a child speaking and may just say, all right, okay. However, this event kept occurring again and again over time.
Era fisso sempre nella terrazza a guardare il cielo.
He spent a lot of time on the balcony with his eyes fixed on the sky, and he used to cry, "I've seen a UFO." But we usually didn't pay very much attention. We thought it was the fantasy of a young boy, that's all.
The phenomena carried on, and since Antonio kept insisting, the family members also started to become aware of the fact that he really saw strange things.
He was on the terrace in the dark and I heard him calling, "Mum, hurry up, come and see." This boy was crying. He was shaken and sweating. Look. So we have seen those sort of flotillas that now we see on the television.
Papà, vieni fuori.
"Dad, come out and be quiet," he told me. And I kept silent, even though usually I talk a lot. So he continued, "Look up at the sky." So I did it, and he said, "Be quiet, look over there. You can see those 3 points moving?" I looked at him, then looked up once again, but they had disappeared. Once at home, I thought, man, he must be an extraterrestrial. I know he is my son, but I do not understand what is this strange thing he radiates.
This is the house where I was born. This is the balcony where the first sightings occurred when I was 7, 8 years old. I remember that it was right between those two cranes on the background where we see a small strip of sea. From that point over there, I started to see the first objects coming up, stopping, going from right to left, spheres of several kinds. They came from the sea and stopped right over here.
Antonio's sightings used to happen even when he went out with the whole family.
We went to the seaside in Tirrenia. While we were enjoying ourselves, playing cards or having an ice cream, he looked at the sky all the time. One day he came running towards me saying, "Mum, hurry up, come and see what's here." We were in the parking area with a lot of people and they all saw it and, we were quite shocked.
Vedevo questo disco sopra di me, luminosissimo.
I saw a disc above me, very bright, changing colours and spinning around, making very strange revolutions, passing jerkily from left to right.
A scatti. Questo, attirando la mia attenzione, mi ha portato a urlare, attirare l'attenzione.
It drew my attention, so I started to cry, getting my parents and the other people's attention. I was about 8 years old.
The family's testimony could carry on. However, they confirm that Antonio has always been very sensible since he was young, making him somewhat different from those of the same age. With his aptitude to spot mysterious flying objects strangely connected to him.
Antonio has always been a peculiar boy. He's always mentioned that he sees things. He's always looked awkward to my eyes. I don't know the reason. I don't know what drives him. He says he feels something inside. And when he feels some presence, he just takes the camera and shoots all the time. People may think he is mad, but these are the facts.
The events that Antonio and his family have described are not new for ufology and contact cases. That peculiar sensitiveness, the recurring sightings since an early age, are common elements for other famous contactees.
Emerge il fatto che queste persone hanno avuto o avrebbero avuto.
The fact comes out that these people have had or might have had similar experiences earlier in their life.
Quindi magari o da bambini o anche, in epoca comunque precedente.
So it could have happened either when they were children or at an earlier age in which they were not fully aware of what was happening. Possibly only years after the event they could understand it.
Tutto questo dà da pensare, perché potrebbe addirittura far ritenere...
All this makes you wonder, since it suggests that this person could have been chosen somehow to live this kind of experience.
È sicuramente indicativo il fatto che...
Anyhow, it is surely important to consider that even Spielberg dealt with these experiences in the TV series Taken.
The episodes carried on until the age of about 13. At that time, Antonio started to cultivate other interests, and so the phenomena became less frequent. This phase lasted until he was about 22 to 23 years old, when Antonio met a group of ufologists and extraterrestrial enthusiasts in Livorno. In that moment, his passion of youth for the mysterious visitors was restored. He started experiencing again the events that characterized his youth. Antonio felt to go to Valle Benedetta, an area just outside Livorno. Sometimes he went there on his own, other times he involved other people, starting with his brother, Gabriele, even if not everyone shared Antonio's passion for the phenomenon.
Quando andavano su alla Valle Benedetta...
When they went to Valle Benedetta, Gabriele used to go too, but he did not take it that seriously. Whereas Antonio did the opposite. He was utterly keen.
Ecco perché ho detto, è troppo differente.
This is why I've said he was so different from the others, from his schoolmates.
La serata si svolgeva così.
The evening went more or less like this. We got there by car, took position, and maybe after about 5 minutes, 1 or 2 lights would manifest above us.
O magari si vedevano venire su dalla collina.
They would maybe come up from the hill and start hovering above us, increasing their luminescence.
E da lì piano piano poi si spostavano.
Then they would slowly change position with irregular movements, impossible for a conventional plane.
Unfortunately, nobody thought to bring a video camera or photographic equipment.
Non portavamo né telecamere né macchine fotografiche.
We haven't thought of bringing camcorders or cameras, as it was something really new for us. I mean that we didn't take the time to consider capturing frames in order to show our experience to the others. There was not even the intention to show any material to anyone, because we felt it as a personal experience.
During skywatching, many people had the chance to experience at first hand the appearance of those unknown aircrafts that Antonio mentioned, even if not everything was so straightforward.
During the period in which there have been many such sightings, I try to involve as many people as possible, like my family and close friends. Unfortunately, though, I have to confess there has been a lot of mockery.
Francisco Vanci Consiglieri is among those friends that at the time used to see the spectacular fluctuations of unidentified visitors with Antonio.
Quando Antonio mi ha raccontato di queste esperienze,
When Antonio told me about these experiences, I immediately believed him, as we're very close friends. We have always had a strong bond since we were children, I reckon since we were about 5-6 years old.
ho vissuto questo tipo di
I
esperienze.
did experience these kind of occurrences with Antonio. I remember in detail at least 15 events.
Sono venuto
I often went there in winter time during that period between 96 and 97.
in inverno. Ci sono state delle settimane in cui ci recavamo in questo luogo.
There have been periods in which we went there at least twice a week. Although Antonio used to go even more frequently on his own, I didn't go with him all the time.
Fabio Gregori, another friend of Antonio's, lives close to the Valle Benedetta zone. Besides the experiences with Antonio, he has had sightings on his own as well.
La mia esperienza con gli UFO in questo posto è iniziata all'età di 7 anni.
My personal UFO experience in this area started at the age of 7. One summer afternoon, I was sitting about 100 meters from my house on the stairs of a villa of a friend of mine. I was on my own, and when I looked up, I saw a black cigar-shaped object. I immediately thought of an airship, but looking more carefully, I realized it did not really look like that. It had nothing to do with them. That's about it. I told my relatives about this experience. My grandfather told me that they were also around when he was young, and even my great-grandfather would confirm it. The other experience occurred at about 8:45 to 8:50 p.m. in April '83. It was perfectly visible. Also the following experience in 1997, when a silver sphere appeared at 10 minutes to 1.
The peculiarity of Antonio's experiences is the repeatability and the frequency, two elements not occurring in the other cases of sightings.
The experiences that I had in this zone have been totally fortuitous. Actually, following these experiences, I have tried to see another, but I have never. Let's say none has turned up. It was all coincidental.
The whole of Tuscany, and in particular the zone of Valle Benedetta, including the hills near Livorno, as stated by Grigori, were not new to these kinds of manifestations. In fact, researchers had already discovered numerous cases.
Per quanto concerne la Toscana, si tratta di
Tuscany has always been a hot region regarding ufological reports.
Anzi, diciamo che qualcuno ha ritenuto che
Actually, some people suggest that possibly its geographical position within the peninsula and the Tyrrhenian area may have somehow given it a privileged position compared to other Italian zones regarding UFO sightings.
altre zone finitime.
There are other zones like Valle Benedetta.
Altre aree che tra l'altro costituiscono
Other areas representing an important sector.
Tra l'altro abbastanza rilevante per la presenza anche della base NATO americana di Camp.
Due to the Camp Darby NATO base near the Tombola Pinewood in the district of Pisa.
In zona si manifesta.
Additionally, also around that area, a local group called ENU is very active. Basically, it was guided by Mario Bonsignori, who actually carried out a series of investigations in the area and introduced these ufological phenomena to the people in the province. Without his inspection activity, these occurrences would never have been published.
Valle Benedetta fino al Castellaggio.
Valle Benedetta up to Castellazzo is a zone in which many people, during the years from 76 to 83-84, at least as far as I'm concerned, have reported the so-called moving lights. Here they say that people working on it, I know of Sister Nino, Nugola, Colle de Montenero, Castellazzo Romito, Valle Benedetta Cologno, and Limoncino. All these places are locations where some people, common people like farmers, even if they were not aware of each other, told me of these sightings.
The opinions of experts, together with those of Urzi's family members and friends, describe a picture of an incredible experience within a real context. History, places, and testimonies synchronize to fit these extraordinary episodes into our reality, culminating into Antonio's shocking films. The Mayan calendar is known and studied by dozens of researchers. In fact, many believe that it holds a prophetic message. However, its decoding is not yet complete. The Mayas were convinced that time is cyclic. Every 5,125 years, an era would end, simultaneously opening a new one. Such an event, according to several prophecies, will take place once again on the 21st of December 2012. An important date, in which some reckon that there will be strong changes for mankind and for our planet. What is true about it? Moreover, during the last few years, the mystery has become even more intriguing. On the crop fields, incredible Mayan figures started to appear. Who or what could draw these pictograms with elements that join together past, present, and future? Is it possible that an incredible connection is concealed between the Mayan prophecies and the crop circles?
intrinsic in many of the patterns, especially the stuff which affects the South and Central American regions, the Mayan patterns, as we spoke about before. Highly interesting stuff, and this points directly to times, a point in our history where things are changing. There's a kind of an evolutionary shift.
A leap of evolution. This is what the Mayas prophesied when referring to the date of 2012. And the appearance of Mayan figures and symbols in wheat fields would suggest that the mysterious architects of the crop circles want to draw our attention to current events and towards the end of this era. Actually, the use of the term prophecy regarding Mayan people is not quite correct. The Mayas, in fact, had identified regular cycles of time occurring in the universe. On the basis of this knowledge, they were able to predict centuries in advance astronomical events of great importance, which would affect the whole of mankind. To calculate these cycles, the Mayas had developed a complex system of calendars that they used in order to synchronize their existence with the flow of events and of cosmic energies. The shorter cycle that they calculated was 52 years long and was obtained through the interaction of two different calendars: the sacred calendar, called the Tzolk'in, and the civil one, called Harb. The Tzolk'in was formed by 13 months of 20 days each, for a total of 260 days, corresponding to the average length of gestation of a human being. The Harb calendar was made up of 18 months of 20 days each, for a total of 360 days. In order to obtain the solar year 365 days long, there was an addition of a 5-day month called Uabe. According to their studies, our solar system undergoes a circular motion toward and away from the center of the galaxy, the Milky Way, which lasts 25,625 years. The Mayas called this cycle Galactic Day and subdivided it into 5 subcycles of 5,125 years each, which they considered as individual eras and were called suns. At the end of each sun, they presumed that a strong energy flow would be generated from the center of the galaxy, causing a strong and unusual solar activity associated with global catastrophes. In fact, in 1997, the SOHO spacecraft detected an energy flow from the center of the galaxy, and a few years later, the Sun entered a very strong activity cycle. This gave scientific support to what had been anticipated by the Mayas.
The Maya civilization knew the behavior of the Sun and knew of its cycles. They knew that during this time, a macro cycle would have ended. I hope they were wrong, but according to what they're telling us, and to what's happening, we can expect a very serious situation with regard to the Sun in the coming years.
Also, the Mayan forecast regarding the energy coming from the center of the galaxy appeared in a crop circle on July the 13th, 1996 in West Kennet. The figure shows the Mayan symbol Hunab-Ku, which represents the galactic center. You can clearly see rays coming out of its perimeter. Next to Hunab-Ku, there are the crescent moon and a comet. How is this connection possible between the Mayan prophecies and the crop circles? Yet the messages coming from the pictograms are even more accurate. In fact, the astronomical depictions of the crop circles often indicate dates too, and in this case, the sky shown refers to a specific date. According to current knowledge, this layout of the sky should occur in December 2012. Does this perhaps indicate the peak of its energetic intensity? The Mayas remembered that already 4 suns, namely 4 cycles of 5,125 years each, had elapsed since the beginning of the Great Cycle or Galactic Day. Thus, according to their calculations, we are now at the end of the era of the 5th sun, which began on August the 13th, 3114 BC, and will end on December the 21st, 2012. During this period, the Mayas predicted new upheavals on our planet and a great spiritual renewal in humans. The survivors would have started a new golden age. a change that, according to some researchers, has already begun.
The other thing is that the law of karma is becoming more powerful. Bad people are being banged. Good people are being rewarded. It's happening more and more. What we think is what we get, and this becomes more and more direct as time goes on, because we are in the middle of this shift. And I think when the shift is complete in 2012, it'll be a completely new planet. I think it's going to hurt, but...
On the 2nd of August 2004 was spotted one of the most beautiful Mayan-styled figures ever to appear. It represents the Mayan calendar of the long count, that is the cycle, or sun, in which we are now, but will end on the 21st of December 2012. It also indicates the eternal cycles of time and of the life-death wheel, the duality. This concept is expressed by the two wings at the center of the circle of the Chinese yin-yang symbol. The second figure appeared on the 9th of August 2005. It represents the sacred Mayan calendar, the Tzolk'in, a 260-day long calendar equivalent to the gestation period of a human being. The outside of the circle is composed of 20 elements, while in the inner circle there is a group of 13 bars, repeated 4 times. 13 times 20 is 260. This number corresponds to the days of the sacred Tzolk'in calendar, while 13 times 4 is 52, which is the number of years of a complete Tzolk'in Harb cycle.
Los dos números son importantes.
Both numbers are important. Every 52 years, the 365-day solar calendar and the 260-day civil calendar joined up, starting from the same day, called the New Fire Ceremony. Looking toward the center of this figure, we have a half bow that indicates day 0. It is the day when the Pleiades, the Sun and the Earth line up. And this happens exactly every 20th of May. But in this case, the figure also represents a partial sun eclipse. On the 20th of May 2012, there will be a partial sun eclipse. Therefore, they are indicating a very precise date. They give us both the day and the year, May 20th, 2012.
Surprisingly, 60 days after the spring equinox of the 21st of March 2012, that is precisely May the 20th, 2012, at noon, the sun will be aligned with the Pleiades above the zenith of the Pyramid of Chichen Itza. Are these just coincidences? Why do the creators of the circles want to point out this date? The Pyramid of Chichen Itza was built in honor of the god Quetzalcoatl, or Kukulchan, of which the Mayas and all the South American peoples were waiting for the return. Is this a new reference to the return of the Masters of the Stars? But let's continue to analyze the circle. Opposite to the 0 symbol, there are 2 groups of 8 lances or feathers. 8 plus 8 is 16. Exactly 16 days after day 0, there will be a transit of Venus in front of the Sun, the last one during this century. It is a phenomenon that occurs only twice every 100 years or so and was considered very important by the Mayas, since it coincided with 2 cycles of 52 years of their Tzolk'in Harb calendar. In this case, the transit is even more important because it is the last one for the 3 cycles of 25,625, 5,125 and 52 years, which all end in 2012. Let's go back to Earth. A few days later, exactly on the 13th of August 2005, another pictogram with clear Mayan symbols appeared in a nearby field. It consists of a circle in which a square is inscribed, that in turn contains another circle. This is the representation of the Mayan microcosm-macrocosm, the Hermetic concept of, as on the top, so is it at the bottom. But according to some researchers, the square inside the circle would have an even deeper meaning.
we had a repetition of a sacred geometry exercise known as squaring the circle. Now, this is very important because the square in time, well, forever, the square is the world, reality, mechanical, solid reality, a linear time, symbolized by a square. And the circle is heaven and God and the divine. So the exercise is to make a square whose perimeter is exactly the same length as the circumference of the circle. And the crop circles have been saying, square the circle, square the circle, square the circle, square the circle.
Thus, squaring the circle means balancing the material and spiritual aspects of life. But let's go back to the pictogram and to the other extraordinary symbolism that it represents. In the middle, we have the Hunab Ku, that besides being a symbol of the Mayan divinity of creation, is also a six-pointed star, that is the monogram of Christ. This could mean an extraordinary identity. Is it possible that what for us stands for the essence of the divinity of creation was the same for the Mayas? Since 2005, which was marked by the two beautiful Mayan pictograms that we have seen, every year a crop circle with symbols clearly referring to this ancient civilization appears. The crop circle on the 15th of August 2006 is the Mayan symbol for Venus. We can therefore deduce that it refers to the end and to the beginning of the new cycle of transits of Venus in front of the Sun, a cycle that is for this century, as indicated in the pictogram on the 9th of August 2005, will end with the transit on June 2012. Therefore, we can say that this figure marks the transition from the old era, or 5th sun, to the new era, or 6th sun, that will begin on Saturday, December the 22nd, 2012. But Venus is also important for another fact. The Mayas were aware that at the end of its cycle of eclipses, the Sun would have manifested and would have spoken. With this, they meant a strong increase of activity of our star. Activity that would have deeply influenced our civilization and our planet.
In their oral tradition, the Mayas handed on indications of how the Sun would have behaved, the fact that all natural systems would have gone out of control. And that is exactly what is happening. Very few astronomers consider the importance of the Sun, but it's the Sun that is causing climate change, more than man himself.
On the 31st of July 2007, NASA found a spot on the Sun that was white instead of black. This indicates that its polarity was reversed compared to a normal spot. Scientists have revealed that this is an anomaly that indicates the beginning of cycle number 24 of solar maxima and of subsequent storms. The highest peaks with an activity of abnormal power are foreseen by the American space body for the years 2010, 2011 and 2012. Exactly when Venus will have completed its cycle of eclipses. The same period in which, as announced by the Mayas, the Sun will talk, that is to say, it will manifest its full power.
The last solar maximum occurred in 2001. The next one is expected between 2011 and 2012. During a normal solar maximum on the surface of our star, there are between 80 and 100 spots. Around 2011 and 2012, they are expected to be between 150 and 180 spots. I mean that there will be a cycle of cycles. This has a serious number of consequences, and global warming goes hand in hand with climate change. In practice, the seasons all over the world are out of phase, reaching every year record peaks of drought or excessive storms. Every year, there are more intense hurricanes, more powerful monsoons affecting even places where they had never occurred before. For instance, what about the hurricane that struck Brazil in 2005? And about the hurricane season in 2005 with Wilma and Katrina? A season in which the climate has become much harsher. There is evidence, many scientifically well-substantiated facts, right?
But the crop circle on the 15th of August 2006 is also the Mayan glyph called Lamat, name and symbol of the 8th day of the sacred Tzolk'in calendar. And it is exactly a Lamat, the day in which begins and ends the period of the Mayan prophecy of the Dresden Code regarding the contact of humanity with the masters from the stars. Also in the Dresden Code, on the last page, the Mayas have depicted an image symbolizing how the end of humanity will happen. You see water flowing from the mouth of a snake, from the sun and from the moon. May it be interpreted as a devastating flood? Water, however, symbolizes also truth, spiritual knowledge, and the sign of the new era is the aquarium, whose symbol is in fact a man pouring water. As already mentioned in the Dresden Code, is prophesied the encounter with the Masters of the Stars. Thus, the water coming out of the snake, from the sun and the moon, and the water in the symbol of Aquarius could have the same meaning. Water of knowledge, truth poured on earth by evolved people coming from the sky. Truth that overwhelms the false concepts with which humanity has been living until now, and that are seriously leading us toward the risk of self-destruction. In the light of these considerations, the crop circles could be seen as a genuine attempt to communicate.
I think this is the first communication. It's not a message. It's a very clever curriculum, very clever agenda, because we have become corrupted and degenerate, and they're returning us to spirit.
In 2007, a new crop circle with Mayan symbols appeared on August the 12th. It was the Mayan number 6, made by a bar and a dot. The dot is the unit, the bar is number 5. A very simple circle that left researchers somewhat disappointed. But following extensive research and analysis of its meaning, irrefutable correlations between the number 6 and the Mayan prophecies were brought to light. The simple pictogram became as important as the Mayan circles from previous years. A few weeks earlier, a circle with Aztec features appeared, indicating August the 18th, 2007 through astronomical symbols. On that date, there would have been a conjunction between the Sun and Venus. The circle with the Mayan 6 appeared on August the 12th. Thus, there were exactly 6 days left to get to the same conjunction indicated a few days before by the Aztec formation. In addition, before the next transit of Venus in front of the Sun on the 6th of June 2012, another 6 conjunctions like this one will occur. An astronomical event announced also by the previous circles, whose meaning we have already analysed. Moreover, if we count from the year of its appearance, we find out that the circle of the Mayan 6 shows also the number of years left to 2012.
Such a 6 is often taken as the symbol for heaven, so we have a heavenly design surrounded by the unity of the one, the oneness. In such a simple design, such a powerful, powerful, powerful message.
In short, a figure far from being simple or random, not only for its meaning. If we look more closely at the pictogram, the concept of paradise described by Gary King emerges also in relation to the Mayas. Within the small circle representing the unity, the layout of wheat forms 13 spirals perfectly highlighted. An important Mayan prophecy is called of 9 hells and 13 heavens. With the 9 hells, the Mayas indicated the period beginning in 1519, the year in which the Spanish conquistadors landed on their shores, and ending in December 2012. From that moment, the 13 heavens will begin. So the message of the circle might also be the following: 6 more years are to go before the beginning of the period of the 13 heavens. The message that comprises, in fact, was explained by Gary King. The 2008 crop circle season started once more with an extraordinary pictogram linked to the 2012 Mayan prophecy. This connection was not clear at the very beginning. In fact, it did not have the characteristic features of the previous figures. This crop circle appeared in Wiltshire on July the 15th, and it represents the solar system. The dimensions of the planets do not actually respect their real proportions, yet the crop circle highlights the distinction between their internal and external orbits. It is also worth noting the precision with which Pluto's eccentric orbit was represented. As we already said, the crop circle's astronomical configurations indicate specific dates. Following appropriate analysis, it was shown that the planets will only assume these positions in December 2012. So the link is powerfully evident. The crop circles point once again to this prophetic date of the Mayan calendar. At this point, we could wonder whether there is a relation between the prophecies of this ancient people and some prophetic books much closer to our culture, like the Book of Revelation. As a matter of fact, contents are similar, both speaking about the end of an historical period, of the sufferings of humanity, of traumatic change for our planet, and the coming of a new era, a new kingdom of peace. The Mayas were waiting for the return of their god, Kukulkan, and Christians for Christ's second coming. Daring? Possibly. But on August the 15th, 2008, in the English fields of Wiltshire, a pictogram appeared that left everybody speechless. The image represented was very powerful indeed, a Christian cross. What should we think after this new feat? Counting up the number of circles in the horizontal and vertical arms of the cross and the great circle appearing behind the intersection of the two arms, we reach a total of 13. Does this also refer to the Mayan prophecy of the 13 heavens? We must not forget that this concept of a common spiritual identity already occurred in a previous circle. Historically, this had been already acknowledged by the first missionaries who accompanied the conquistadors. In fact, they had the chance to know the Mayan religion. Unfortunately, they considered it a creation of the devil who wanted to confuse them, so they destroyed this precious cultural heritage. Fortunately, today we are possibly more open to such a hypothesis. We should also recall that in Palenque, the ancient Mayan city where the renowned King Pacal's sepulchral stone stands, there is a temple called Temple of the Cross, where this symbol is depicted.
I think that we finally got to a conclusion. That's to say, they finally identified themselves by using a symbol that has an immense value for the whole of humanity. It has no need of many explanations, as it's a symbol that everybody in the world can recognize. Not only the Christians, who obviously understand its importance, but even lay people know about it. They are saying, it is us. We are these beings, and, whether you like it or not, we are connected to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ intended not just the Christian religion, because this way we would discriminate against Islam and Buddhism. Jesus Christ is actually intended as a bearer of a universal message. That's to say, we are connected to the values of love, peace, brotherhood and justice that this man, who died on the cross for all of you, does represent.
We could still carry on describing further data and symbols related to the knowledge and prophecies of the Mayas, which have appeared in the extraordinary English crop circles. Could the Mayas really predict future events? Do these warnings have a real foundation? Now, even scientists confirm that the Earth is a living entity, a complex organism. The message coming from the ancient Mayas and modern crop circles appears to be the same. A change of conscience is absolutely necessary, as never before in human history. A message of warning and hope coming from a past whose importance is hardly being recognized.
Es curioso que ahora está ocurriendo.
It is funny that now it's happening, exactly what has been announced. Changes are predicted, and it seems that they are actually taking place. Thus, looking at our old generations or ancient civilizations as if they were less developed and therefore inferior to us is wrong. They were as intelligent as we are, or even smarter. After the tsunami in 2005, NASA checked on March 21st, 2005, and recorded with absolute precision the spring equinox from Chichen Itza. Why? Because they did not possess a single tool that allowed them to determine the position of the sun with the same accuracy with which it is measured at Chichen Itza. So we see that not only modern science accepts the phenomenon, but it even needs it. This means that not only does it accept the fact that these ancient civilizations had a very precise knowledge, but they are even taking advantage of it. Therefore, considering this, I suggest that we should begin to respect the ancient civilizations.
And this is what the creators of the pictograms did. Whether human or alien, they amplified the message coming from the cultures of the past, such as the Mayas, through a fascinating symbolism beautifully engraved on the wheat fields of England.
It is funny that now it's happening, exactly what has been announced. Changes are predicted, and it seems that they are actually taking place.
This is the best footage and most comprehensive footage available of when the crop circle takes.
I think this is the first communication.
This points directly to times, a point in our history where things are changing.
What's happening in Mexico's skies? Why is it that in the last 15 years, unidentified flying objects have flown through these skies with a frequency that seems to be steadily increasing? The number of witnesses is multiplying too, and thanks to technology, so is the number of amateur films. The media have documented these incredible episodes, and many people are now wondering what's happening in Mexico. The most organized of them are a group of researchers who have begun an unprecedented project in the history of modern ufology, systematically studying and monitoring the sky. Everything is filmed, recorded, and scientifically documented. The team's name is the Vigilantes, and their work has produced an incredible number of photographs, testimonies, and films, which are analyzed very carefully. The amount of material was so impressive that it led the researchers to think of Mexico as a true contact point. It all began with the total solar eclipse that took place in Mexico on the 11th of July 1991, coinciding with an ancient Mayan prophecy. The prophecy foretold that such an eclipse in Mexico would mark the beginning of humanity's encounter with the Lords of the Stars. It was all written in the Dresden Codex, one of the few documents that escaped the wrath of the Spanish conquistadors. But let's get back to the eclipse. On the 11th of July 1991, millions of people and hundreds of video cameras followed this spectacular astronomical event. Initially, nobody seemed to notice the presence of an anomalous aircraft hovering in the sky over Mexico City. But when reviewing the footage later, many people noted the intruder. It seemed to be made of metal that reflected the sunlight, and it was shaped like a classic flying saucer. The sighting created quite a stir, and even the TV media became involved, especially researcher and journalist Jaime Maussan. In the days following the eclipse, the staff of Televisa, one of Mexico's largest private TV networks, was flooded with videos of the mysterious aircraft. The public's curiosity grew. What exactly was the object filmed during the eclipse? Where did it come from? Could it possibly be a confirmation of the mysterious Mayan prophecy? Demetrio Feria, one of the first members of the Vigilantes, remembers that day well.
My experience began in June of 1991, before the great eclipse that took place in Mexico on the 11th of July of that year. That was when I decided to film them. I already had a video camera, and I wanted to know whether the phenomenon was real or just a bunch of lies, special effects or something like that. And luckily, I managed to capture them on film. I devoted quite a bit of time to them between June and November, and I began filming them one dawn in November at 5 in the morning.
Ruben Villatoro also remembers the eclipse well. That was the moment he decided to become a vigilante.
After
the total solar eclipse on the 11th of July 1991, Jaime Maussan went on television and said that at the time of the eclipse, there were people who had filmed the UFOs with their video cameras. I decided that it was important to follow their example. I bought a video camera, and over the years, I've filmed several objects flying over Mexico City.
The event during the eclipse seemed to have opened a Pandora's box of UFO sightings. Thus, Mexico saw the beginning of one of the most intense waves of sightings in history. Without a doubt, the remarkable availability of cameras and video cameras improved the potential for sightings, but the number of sightings only began to grow exponentially after the eclipse of the 11th of July 1991. Footage from Mexico traveled around the world, amazing those who saw the videos and bringing much joy to scholars who had never had so much material to analyze. Of all the investigators, Jaime Maussan is the most responsible for having researched and disseminated the large quantity of video footage captured in Mexico by both occasional witnesses and by the Vigilantes. The idea to start this group was also his.
The Vigilantes group was Jaime's idea. He was the one to form the group, and when I arrived, it was already in existence.
El grupo todavía existe, pero ya casi no hay no son muchos los
The group still exists. Its members are few, but those who have stayed are at the forefront of this research.
Today, Jaime Maussan directs and coordinates the Vigilantes' work alongside researcher Pedro Avila. His videos of unidentified flying objects have circulated all around the world, generating a great deal of interest. For over 15 years, Pedro has lived the life of a near recluse in his small room due to a debilitating illness that has practically immobilized him. Despite this, Pedro Avila has made some very important contributions to international ufological research from within his small world. A small window and a piece of sky are his only contact with the outside world, which he observes carefully from the first hours of the day well into the night. He's a full-time vigilante, and without a shadow of a doubt, he's one of the best.
Mucha gente es lo que se pregunta, ¿cómo es posible que con esa
A lot of people ask me, or wonder why most of my videos were filmed from this little window.
Bueno, esto surge por dos
Well,
cuestiones.
there are
La
two
primera,
reasons.
pues, es que yo
First of
tengo
all,
una
I have a
pequeña
little window
ventana
no more
de
than
más de
1.8 meters in length
1,80 de
and
ancho
1 meter
por
in
1
height,
metro de altura,
and my visual
y mi ángulo
angle
de
is
visión es
quite
muy
limited.
cerrado. Entonces me es un poquito complicado a veces poder captar estos objetos.
Therefore, it's a bit
Y en
difficult
ese
for me to
pequeño
make out
espacio es
these
donde yo he
objects.
logrado todo
And in this
esto
little
que
space,
he
I've managed to record
podido
everything that I've
captar.
filmed
Y la
to the present.
segunda es porque yo
The
desde ese
second
tiempo
reason
atrás,
is that some time ago,
se me
I was
detectó una
diagnosed with an
enfermedad que
illness
se
known as
conoce como
progressive
distrofia
muscular
muscular
dystrophy,
progresiva, la cual pues obviamente con el
which
tiempo va
obviously gets worse with
avanzando
time.
y pues en la
And now I
actualidad ya no
can't
me
leave the
permite
house like I
bajar
used
y
to.
subir como lo hacía antes. Regularmente yo antes hacía estas filmaciones desde el jardín de mi casa.
In the past, I used to film these videos from the garden or the garage. But when my health grew delicate, I was forced to stay in my room. I thought that this would limit my ability to film videos, since I didn't have the same extent of sky that I could see from the garden. However, I was greatly surprised because I realized that from here, from this little window, I've recorded the best videos I've ever shot.
Pedro is a true example of extraordinary passion and willpower. Armed with his camera, video camera and binoculars, he has captured some of the best footage of unidentified flying objects ever filmed. His collection includes some light spheres and the famous flotillas.
Sabemos que dentro de la investigación OVNI, los objetos que más abundan son las esferas.
We know that the most common objects in UFO investigation are spheres, which can be a single white sphere or silver spheres, black, blue, red, or multicolored.
Pueden venir acompañadas de dos o
sometimes there may be only two of them, and other times we've been able to film flotillas composed of over 300 or 500 objects.
Al momento de irse
often they shift one way and the other. They interact.
Interactuando entre ellas.
These are the most interesting sightings.
One of the most important videos of spheres was recorded in Mexico in 2002. The images clearly show two spheres revolving in the sky. Ordinarily, the spheres appear to be shiny and white, but in this film, the sphere's metal form is clearer than ever before. This footage confirms statements made by many other witnesses who claim to have seen similar spheres fly through the sky and suddenly change state, going from luminous to metallic. In addition to flotillas and spheres, Pedro has also filmed some unconventional flying objects of a totally unexplained appearance.
En una ocasión,
I once filmed 6 dark objects that look like watermelon seeds, like little black seeds.
Son unas como semillitas negras, las cuales
These 6 objects formed a shape in the sky very much like a flower with 6 petals.
De 6 pétalos. Lo curioso es que cuando uno hace el acercamiento con la cámara,
the strange thing is that when we zoom in, when we analyze the video, when we add filters and all the rest, we can't seem to find a structure.
Los objetos se están moviendo rítmicamente.
In other words, the objects are moving rhythmically, with an amazing synchronicity, and always keeping the same position as if they were a flower, spinning, going up and down, but always keeping the same distance, despite there being no structure between the objects.
Avia's video is the first to show an object of such a shape flying in broad daylight. Pedro Avia has filmed objects demonstrating incredible abilities that have never before been documented. Thanks to his commitment and an original filming technique, he has produced results showing that the mysterious unidentified flying objects may have features we don't yet know about, which are of extraordinary interest.
One of the
videos I consider the most important involves objects that are invisible to the naked eye and which can only be captured by using infrared vision.
y que solamente a través de la visión infrarroja se pueden captar.
To do this, I developed a special technique using two video cameras. One films in the usual spectrum and the other films in the infrared spectrum. To use them both, I made a special rigging and placed one camera atop the other, training them on the same point. That is, the same focal distance, the same level of zoom. I frame the images so that they show the exact same thing. Therefore, what the normal camera sees is also what the infrared camera sees.
Entonces, eso es bien importante porque eso está demostrando.
This is very important because it demonstrates that there are objects moving in the sky that are invisible to the human eye, and we can't perceive their presence.
The surprising results achieved with this technique have aroused great interest in various parts of the world.
Después de que yo desarrollo esta técnica,
once I developed this technique for filming in infrared vision with both video cameras, news of it began to travel around the world.
Un grupo de franceses donde hay involucrados algunos científicos.
A French group, including some scientists, organized an investigation group and some research programs.
A mí me sorprende cuando Jaime Maussan se
I was amazed when Jaime Maussan contacted me and sent me an email informing me that they were going to create an investigation program in my name. The main program in this investigation will bear my name in honor of what I've created. They give it a prominent position on their European website, where they explain the technique I created and how it works. A few weeks ago, some people from Denmark came to make a short film, which will be submitted for a competition in a film festival connected to the UFO phenomenon.
The large number of videos that the vigilantes have recorded shows that craft are flying through our skies with characteristics and flight dynamics that differ from the conventional features of aeroplanes or helicopters. And that's not all. These videos demonstrate that systematic and continuous observation of the sky can provide interesting documentation. Quite different from accidental amateur footage, which tends to raise doubts. It's no coincidence that the vigilantes have respectable professional backgrounds.
Yo creo que el escepticismo es una parte normal en el ser humano.
I believe that skepticism is a normal part of human behavior. Many people don't believe in the existence of UFOs, and I think it depends on the simple habit of observing the sky.
Quien mira y pone sus ojos hacia arriba y empieza no a ver, sino a observar y dedica.
Those who look upwards and begin not only to see, but to observe, and dedicate time to this, will start to realize that there are presences. There are presences that have nothing to do with objects we normally see flying, like aeroplanes, helicopters, weather probes, balloons, etc.
Lo que a mí me ha llevado a volverme un vigilante.
One of the things that drove me to become a vigilante of the sky was my work as a professional architecture photographer.
Precisamente lo que es importante y lo que me ha llevado a hacer.
In particular, what was important was that it led me to take good pictures, and as a professional photographer, my knowledge of light and shadow makes a difference.
Es algo importante para poder ver a los objetos. ¿Cuál es la hora más adecuada?
It's a very important factor to be able to see the objects, knowing what time of day the light helps us, when the sun literally brings out the objects.
Spheres and flotillas also make frequent appearances in the videos by Arturo Robles Gile, and they are truly spectacular. Where could these mysterious objects have come from? Some people believe they have captured the answer in a photograph. During the great wave of sightings in the 1990s, phenomena were sighted that amazed both direct witnesses and researchers. Video cameras captured flying objects capable of releasing an incredible number of spheres, giving rise to the flotilla phenomenon. At first, the classic luminous spherical objects were the ones to show this trait. Later, but still in Mexico, enormous tubular structures were sighted and filmed. Further light spheres came out of these irregularly shaped structures. This new chapter added new questions and mysterious elements to the world of ufology. Even the ufology experts can't explain these images. The objects are christened gusanas voladores, or flying worms, because of their appearance. They raise many questions. Where do they come from? What technology do they use? How can these structures appear and hover in the sky without any known flight mechanism? How can they contain and expel the number of spheres that have been filmed? A major step has been taken thanks once again to one of the vigilantes, engineer Arturo Robles Gila.
Esa mañana yo subí a la azotea, a pesar de que estaba muy nublado, subí a ver las condiciones climatológicas, cómo iban a estar para en la noche.
That morning, I went out onto the terrace, although it was very cloudy, to check the weather conditions because that night there was going to be a lunar eclipse, which is very important from a photographic point of view. At the time, in 2004, there were a number of people here repairing the building, and we all witnessed it. But I was the only one who looked up to the zenith. I don't even know why I did it, as I usually made general observations all around. But on that day, I remember that I turned my head completely upward, and I saw an object I couldn't identify. I saw a structure. At first sight, it looked like a mass, white and enormous.
To give
you an idea of how large it was like two jets put together. It was huge. At the time, I was already interested in phenomena discovered in the sky. I had my video camera and tripod in hand, and I began to film the object.
Al hacer acercamientos con la cámara de video, me di cuenta que la estructura se movía, que no era una cosa que flotaba.
Moving closer with my video camera, I realized that the structure was moving, that it wasn't simply floating. It was twisting, writhing. It contracted and expanded. And when I saw that it was beginning to expel spheres, it was clear to me that something absolutely incredible was happening.
Entonces dije, bueno,
so I asked myself, what else can I do? I thought that photographs could be a tremendously important support, and so I took some. I remember that I took about 24 photographs.
The high-definition images that Gila obtained mark an important breakthrough in the study of these spectacular unidentified structures.
Y cuando yo las bajé a la computadora y vi que se trataba de
When I downloaded the photos to my computer, I realized that the structure appeared to be formed by thousands or hundreds of thousands of segments.
Y que tenía esferas de colores perimetrales. Debo ser honesto.
It also had colored outer spheres. I'll be honest, at first I thought it might be a spectacular bunch of balloons.
Le hablé a Jaime Maussan.
I talked about it with Jaime Maussan. I went to his office, and as soon as he saw what I had filmed, without having the slightest idea what it was, he said, "Arturo, what you've captured here is absolutely spectacular."
There
were those who were skeptical, whose unfounded argument was that they could be balloons. So Jaime Maussan immediately phoned a very well-known performer here in Mexico City, who uses the largest balloons in production.
Llegó a la oficina, vio las imágenes digitales y dijo, estos no son globos. Dice,
when he arrived at the office and saw the images, he said, "These aren't balloons, and even if they were balloons, a structure like this would require at least 57,000 balloons, possibly more."
Y además, ¿Cómo podrían armarse? ¿Cómo podría armarse esa estructura?
How could you possibly create a structure with 57,000 balloons without any gas escapes? And how could you let it fly upwards?
Y además se requeriría un permiso especial porque una estructura de ese tamaño ya necesita permiso para estar flotando.
Furthermore, you'd need a special permit, because a structure of that size needs a permit to fly, especially because in that particular area it was very close to flight paths used by airplanes to turn into the airport.
Para mí, ese fue el parteaguas. Ese Ebani madre.
To me, that was a breakthrough. The Mother Ibani, as I call it. The mothership.
The acronym IBANI stands in Spanish for Unidentified Aerial Biological Entity. And since Gila photographed them in high definition, sightings of IBANIs have been increasingly frequent.
Los movimientos de estos objetos son realmente muy orgánicos. O sea, a mí me
The
hace
movements
pensar
of these
en un
objects seems to be
cómo se
organic.
mueve una serpiente o cómo se mueve una oruga. O cómo
They
se
remind
mueve
us of
un
a living
gusano.
being.
Bueno, es exactamente de la misma manera en que se mueven. ¿Por qué se mueven así? No lo sé. Quizá es su manera de navegar o de estar o de mantenerse.
Maybe this is how they maintain stability in the sky.
Realmente no sé por qué se mueven de la misma manera que ocurre en la Tierra con estos organismos. Por lo tanto, los hemos considerado entidades biológicas.
We've called them Unidentified Aerial Biological Entities, or IBANI. And this biological aspect is the most important thing.
Es lo más importante, porque se manifiestan como si estuvieran vivos.
They appear to be
Yo no
alive.
sé si lo están o no, pero
I don't know if
esa
they
es la
are or not,
sensación que te da
but that's the
cuando
sense you
tú ves
get
un
when you
video
see them
de
on
estos.
film.
Y sabemos que cuando se ve un
We
ebani,
do know that when we see an
después
IBANI,
de 50 se van a
we'll
estar
see
viendo
spheres afterwards,
lo cual
which
estaría
may show that
demostrando
there's
esta
some
posibilidad.
connection.
These features become even more evident in the videos made by Arturo Robles Gila since then. The forms and behavior of these anomalous entities seem to be writing the most incredible chapter in the study of unidentified flying objects.
Un Ebani es una entidad de tipo
An
tubular.
IBANI is a tubular-type entity that is also elastic. It's capable of twisting and writhing movements. It can move vertically and horizontally.
Que no necesita motores
It doesn't
para
need
volar,
engines to
que
fly.
no hace ruido,
It doesn't make any
que
noise.
no deja
And it
estela,
doesn't leave a wake.
y que tienen un propósito perfectamente específico de su aparición, que por supuesto saben que yo los estoy observando e inclusive grabando. El propósito específico que tienen los Ebanis es de
The IBANIs appear to have a specific activity, expelling countless spheres into the atmosphere. On some occasions, they have moved from the place where they ordinarily appear and come towards this area. It's as if they wanted to be seen, to be observed with greater precision.
Y entonces esto me ha permitido, con la experiencia fotográfica que tengo,
Thanks to my work as a photographer, this has enabled me to create videos that I believe are without precedent, even on an international level.
The videos made by the vigilantes are just a small part of the large amount of footage showing the continuous activity of unidentified flying objects in the skies of our planet. The two most common questions are always the same, no matter where the phenomena are sighted. What are those objects in the sky? And should we be afraid of them? Giorgio Bongiovanni is one of the Italian scholars following the wave of sightings in Mexico very closely.
The claims of ordinary citizens, military personnel, astronauts and scientists, and the analyses performed on a remarkable amount of photographic and video materials, including the testimony of contactees, whose experience has been proven to be real after several years.
Ci dicono che probabilmente siamo visitati da esseri provenienti dal cosmo.
They all show that it's likely we are being visited by beings from space. They are passive, unaggressive visits, more concentrated in Latin America and in Mexico than in other parts of the world. But they occur all over the planet. This is happening in a period in which humanity is going through a difficult moment in its evolution. I believe that if clear, direct contact were to occur with these civilizations, it would lead to a truly profound Copernican revolution for us. I think that humanity could solve the serious problems in terms of social, political, economic, and environmental justice, which are causing us to risk self-destruction. It would definitely be a new impulse for science and religion. It would bring about the end of the dogmatisms and dangerous fanaticism at the basis of many of today's wars.
In fact, over many years of sightings, the UFO phenomenon has never been accompanied by any signs of aggression. One thing is certain: Mexico seems to play a central role in this saga that borders on science fiction. And the reason why is still a mystery. Perhaps the only clue is an ancient Mayan prophecy that tells of an encounter with the men of the stars. An encounter that would have begun in 1991 and may end in the year 2012. All we can do is wait, with our eyes on the heavens. The sightings continue. An increasing number of unidentified flying objects are captured on film each year in every part of the planet. And each year, incredible new forms are discovered. The images which have been gathered show light spheres, metallic spheres, iridescent spheres, alone, in pairs, in small groups, in squadrons of hundreds of objects, or thousands of them clustered together in a single spectacular flying structure. And then there are mysterious snake-like phenomena, invisible flying objects that only appear in infrared vision, and more, all in the extensive archives now available to scholars. Studies of these extraordinary documents could bring us closer to understanding the enigma of UFOs, one of the most fascinating mysteries of our time. The appearance of unidentified aerial biological entities, or EBANI, is one of the most surprising breakthroughs in the history of unidentified flying objects. The term EBANI stands for Unidentified Aerial Biological Entity in Spanish, and it was coined by Mexican researcher and journalist Jaime Maussan. One of these entities was captured in a video and photos by Arturo Robles Gila on the morning of the 27th of October 2004. In Gila's opinion, this particular entity constitutes a true breakthrough in UFO apparitions and a new enigmatic puzzle for scholars. Until that fateful morning, very little was known about these structures, in part due to the rarity of available videos, and the fact that the images didn't have enough definition to be interpreted properly. The video, and in particular the extraordinary photos that Arturo Robles Gila managed to take on the 27th of October 2004, clearly show that the EBANI is a structure formed by thousands of clustered spheres. A sort of aircraft carrier, the function of which seems to be to transport and expel these spheres into our atmosphere. The reason why this should happen is completely unknown. It's a phenomenon that's difficult to catalogue and explain, even for mainstream science.
Scientists have only been able to provide one answer so far.
estamos confrontando un fenómeno anómalo.
We're looking at an anomalous phenomenon that is classified in neither micro nor macrobiology.
From an observation of the photos taken by Gila, we can clearly see the structure is formed of translucent spheres in 3 different colors: red, white, and blue. Until that moment, only one video had shown a transparent sphere in flight. It too had been recorded in Mexico by Javier Guevara in 2002. At the time, however, the origin of this new kind of sphere was unknown. The sphere's trajectory is linear, and its speed is fairly sustained, indicating that it has its own propulsion system. But the nature of the system that enables such an object to fly remains a mystery. Its transparency and the lack of any visible technological apparatus cannot be compared to any known or imaginable technology. Something we could not have achieved with previous UFO sightings. After the video of the 27th of October 2004, Gila identified and recorded the flight of other similar spheres on film and in photographs. This transparent sphere was photographed at low altitude in 2005. Gila recorded this video while he attended a Mayan ceremony in the area called Cerro de la Estrella, or Star Mountain. This site, in the federal district of the city of Mexico, is believed to be magic and sacred, and many UFOs have been sighted here.
Y bueno, pues al llegar inmediatamente, mi cuñada ubicó en una posición cenital a un objeto.
As soon as we arrived, my sister-in-law noticed a large, translucent object, and I began to film it. We're all quite surprised that it could happen in that place.
But Gila came upon his most spectacular scoop on the 28th of January 2005. His video shows an entire flotilla composed of these iridescent spheres. The spheres dance elegantly in the sky, quite unlike anything that had been filmed up to that time. In the pictures, we can clearly see the various colors of the shining spheres. The colors are even clearer than in the video. The images clearly show the same kind of spheres that made up the Ibani photographed on the 27th of October 2004. Thus, according to Gila, this video may confirm that the mysterious aerial biological entities would continue to deposit spheres into the skies over Mexico City. But the phenomenon has further surprises in store for us.
Después de ese encuentro visual con esta enorme entidad de...
After the enormous entity was sighted in 2004, others began to appear, but they weren't the same.
Que eran distintas, que no se parecían a la primera, pero
they didn't look like the first one, although they showed the same type of behavior during the flight.
Entonces conforme fui captando a estas entidades, empecé a darme cuenta que no nada más eran blancos, sino había...
Once I had sighted these entities, I began to realize that they weren't just white, and there wasn't just one type of Ibani, but other types of different colors, with different designs on their surface, and with a different way of moving.
The photos taken by Arturo Robles Gila on the 14th of May 2006 are a clear example of the variety of Ibanis. These ebani are brightly coloured and have a helical tubular structure which is completely different from the cluster of spheres spotted in October 2004.
Se trata de estructuras que están formadas por un sinnúmero de...
These structures are made up of a number of helical tubes, which makes the whole thing even more intriguing.
Más intrigante y comprensible a la vez.
It might make sense, considering the difference between a structure with rectilinear tubes and one with helical tubes. So why helical? Because a helical structure, with the same diameter, obviously, has a larger storage capacity for the spheres inside it. It can contain hundreds of spheres, which they then expel into our atmosphere.
When looking at this new photographic material, many skeptics think that these are only colourful balloons.
Con respecto a los ebanis de colores, yo entiendo el escepticismo de las gentes.
I can understand the skepticism about the coloured ebani, the people who think that they are structures made of balloons.
Pero afortunadamente, yo no solamente me remito a usar la cámara de video.
Luckily, I'm never satisfied with just using video cameras to film them.
Si lo vemos en términos técnicos,
seen in technical terms, video cameras have a resolution of 640 by 780 pixels. And at best, we'll get a resolution of 520 lines. That's why I also take photographs. Photos go deeper, because they allow us to see more detail.
Y la fotografía ha venido a demostrar de manera contundente y sin una forma.
And photos have demonstrated in an unequivocal way that these are not structures made of balloons.
Y los escépticos que han pretendido
Skeptics have tried to discredit this phenomenon, but their claim that these are garlands of balloons is completely unfounded.
No tienen una fotografía de alta resolución.
They don't have a single high-resolution photograph. They don't have photos taken with high-sensitivity apochromatic lenses. Their claims are based solely on the colour of these structures.
But Rob Lisgila isn't the only one to have filmed the ebani. The phenomenon began to spread, and these entities were sighted and filmed by others too, both in Mexico and in other parts of the world. This black ebani, filmed in the skies over Los Angeles, is of remarkable interest. On one of its ends, we can clearly see a blinking light. The mystery surrounding their true nature thus gains a new element, which had been unknown up to this time. Once again, Gila amazes us with his material. On the 18th of March 2007, he recorded a new video and experienced an unprecedented event. In his video, we get a real impression that the ebani is a live creature.
En esa fecha del 18 de marzo, uno de estos ebanis se dejó venir para acá, pasando a baja altura.
On the 18th of March, an ebani was moving towards us, flying low.
Le pude hacer una grabación a detalle verdaderamente.
I filmed the object passing over my head. I was able to film it with truly amazing detail.
Esta área tiene dos secciones.
This terrace has two levels, and we're on the lower part.
Se fue para el Ajusco, para la zona sur.
I climbed to the top part because it was going towards the Ajusco area, southwards. And by then I was satisfied with the close-up images I'd got.
Subí ya sin cámara, que fue, reconozco que fue una experiencia negativa no haber tenido la cámara.
So I went up without my video camera, and I realize now that it was a mistake not to have brought it with me. Once the ebani arrived, making its usual twisting movements, it suddenly stopped, straightened itself, and flew off at an astonishing speed towards the Santa Fe area, arriving there in just a few seconds.
A partir de ahí me quedó muy claro de que lo que pensábamos que meramente eran gusanos voladores son auténticas naves que pueden.
From that moment, it was clear to me that this wasn't just some kind of flying snake, but a real aircraft, capable of travelling and moving at incredible speeds, much faster than any commercial or military aircraft.
Arturo Robles Giles' story seems to confirm that the Ibanis cannot be a mass formed of mere balloons. The images show an autonomous flight mechanism, an unexplainable propulsion system, as unexplainable as the system that expels its spheres into the atmosphere.
Estas entidades, los Ebanis,
the Ibanis have their own source of energy.
En las grabaciones se nota, sobre todo los que son claros, que brillan demasiado, muchísimo, tienen un brillo espectacular. In
the videos, especially the ones with the sharpest images, we can see that they glow, that they are spectacularly bright. And I'm not talking about the reflection of solar rays of the sunlight. They have their own luminosity. It's the same with the colored ones. There are also translucent Ibanis, which is even more surprising. And they can camouflage themselves at will, become invisible and not perceptible to the human eye.
In the video of the 1st of July 2007 too, we get a remarkable sense of the biological nature of the Ibanis. The entity moves in a continuous fashion, and the video clearly shows its helical structure. Biological entities also seem to appear in groups. In 2005, Jesus Lomeli had already filmed 3 entities together. Later, Gila also recorded videos and took photos showing multiple biological entities. But the most striking material, showing an entire flotilla of Ibanis, was recorded by Miguel Angel Chavez in Mexico City. In the videos recorded on the 22nd and 23rd of September 2007, we can clearly see Ibanis of various colors hovering in the sky and moving in their characteristic way. The entities move in a continuous fashion, and they show a spectacular variety of colors. What should we make of this phenomenon? What might we feel when observing it in person?
La presencia de los Ebanis, sobre todo la incidencia tan grande que hay aquí en la Ciudad de México.
The presence of Ibanis, the density of their numbers, especially here in Mexico City, has increased substantially in the last 10 years.
No se ha visto en ningún momento que haya habido alguna abducción, que haya habido algún ataque.
And yet, we haven't seen a single abduction or attack. Nothing of the sort has happened.
Nos vienen a ayudar.
I believe that these presences come to help us. This is my understanding, my feeling about the Ibanis.
Coquis es un Ebani. Está escupiendo esferas. Está echando esferas, Mina. Mina está echando esferas.
The aerial biological entities seem to be connected to the presence of spheres in the skies over our planet. And their activity also seems to have increased over the course of recent years. Alone, in pairs, or in flotillas of varying number, they're being increasingly captured on film. However, they've only been seen in their metallic form a few times, as in this video recorded by Arturo Robles Gile. At the same time, videos of flotillas formed of metal spheres are rarer than those formed of light spheres. In Flavio Alcantara's video, we see a dark Ibani, and nearby a similarly dark flying sphere. The connection between Ibani and spheres has rarely been revealed so clearly as in the sighting by Arturo Robles Gile of the 27th of October 2004. But there are other images in which the two phenomena appear together. In the first video, we see the Ibani looking like it's closed in on itself, moving independently of the spheres surrounding it. In this case too, this autonomous movement confirms that these are not balls or balloons. In the second film, we can clearly see the Ibani twist and change form, while a remarkable number of white spheres move around it. We can make out spheres which are less visible, which give a better perception of the flotilla's depth in the sky. This elegant and majestic entity has now been flying over our cities with increasing frequency. Just a few meters seem to separate humanity from an extraordinary and unexplainable phenomenon.
El fenómeno de los objetos voladores mal llamado ovnis.
The phenomenon of the flying objects, incorrectly termed UFOs, exists. It's real.
Es tanta las evidencias que tenemos y
I can confirm this based on the amount of evidence we have and the proof I've seen.
No nada más las mías propias, sino la de mis compañeros y la
Not just my evidence, but also the evidence produced by my colleagues and others outside Mexico. We receive material from all over Mexico, and luckily, I get direct access to it. I'm the one who examines and selects the material. The UFO phenomenon in both Mexico and throughout the world is real. It exists.
Demetrio Feria's statements are supported by the incredible number of videos he has recorded up to the present, and by the incredible technological abilities that the flying objects seem to possess.
Hasta ahorita he tenido la oportunidad de grabar cerca de 400 videos.
So far, I've been able to record about 400 videos in the 16 years I've been studying this phenomenon.
El video que yo tengo, el que me ha impresionado más, es de una esfera.
Of the videos I've made, the one that stood out the most is the one of a sphere that I filmed from my house with an infrared lens. It's a little sphere which couldn't be seen with the naked eye, but it was in the sky. These objects are in the air. They live with us.
Esa esfera baja y de cero velocidad.
The sphere comes down and slows down until it almost stops. Then it flies off at an incredible speed. On several occasions, I've been able to film objects flying at a phenomenal speed. I have many such videos. Their speed amazes me.
On the 5th of November 2006, Demetrio Feria used an infrared lens applied to his video camera to film once again a sphere darting around at very high speed.
Cámara estable.
Can the remarkable movements of the sphere filmed by the vigilante be called accidental? Its speed, the angle at which it flies, its ability to make itself invisible and then visible, which is only discernible through the use of infrared lenses, puts these craft beyond our current technical and scientific knowledge. The extraordinary claims thus far presented seem to suggest that the UFO phenomenon could truly be the product of intelligent beings seeking contact. Some people think of the words of an ancient Mayan prophecy that pointed to our time as the period in which humanity was to encounter the lords from the stars. And according to some, the video of 7 light spheres forming a perfect cross, recorded by Steve Burns on the 14th of August 2005 in the skies above Florida, may be a message to be deciphered.
El video de la cruz que fue
The video of the cross was recorded in St. Petersburg, Florida, on Sunday the 14th of August. We know that Mr. Steve Burns filmed it. We have analyzed the video and verified that it isn't computer-generated, and thus it's a truly exceptional document.
The
video was made 15 days before the arrival of Hurricane Katrina.
Anuncia ya el inicio de un proceso final que quizá culminará en los.
It appears to announce the beginning of a final process that could come to an end in the next few years.
Los grandes peligros que estamos confrontando.
We're seeing great changes on Earth, such as changes in climate. We're facing seriously dangerous situations. Global warming and continually increasing solar activity are factors that could cause huge changes in the next few years. I think it's a kind of warning, an indication of what might come to pass. That's why I see this as a very important sign, a very important video.
There are those who are anxiously waiting for the year 2012, the moment of change that the Maya had predicted centuries ago. It could represent the beginning of a new era of peace for humanity.
Io direi che I segni ci sono.
I'd say that the signs are there, and this massive contact between man and extraterrestrials will be the sign of a new era.
Voglio precisare che, e voglio anche dire, secondo
To be precise, and I also want to say that, in my opinion, this presence is peaceful. There's no invasion. There will be no wars between men and extraterrestrials.
perché queste civiltà hanno raggiunto.
Because these civilizations are obviously much more advanced than us, both scientifically and technologically. But this goes hand in hand with ethical and spiritual progress. Therefore, any contact will be peaceful.
Could the extraordinary flying objects shown in these videos be a sign of this coming visit? Will there really be direct contact in the future? These questions are still unanswered. But each day, it seems we come closer to understanding the enigma of UFOs, one of the most fascinating mysteries of our time.
After the wave of sightings in the 90s, from 2000 onwards, the activity of the mysterious flying spheres has continued. Witnesses with cameras and video cameras have continued to record them. Are they extraterrestrial probes? Are we close to contact? An answer could come from the study of the material available to us. An answer that could change our vision of the cosmos and of ourselves. The flying spheres, an enigma that leads us into the future. The photographic and filmed evidence on the spheres shows that they can operate in any environment. The documentation from 2000 onwards provides further undeniable evidence. Often, the spheres are seen close to aircraft routes. These photographs taken by the vigilantes Fausto Avaroa and Arturo Robes Gil in Mexico City are an example. Video cameras were also able to record the facts. We can see it in this video by Arturo Robles Gil in Mexico City. In the film, we can clearly see that the flying spheres are not balloons released into the air. In fact, they are not affected at all by the strong turbulence caused by the passing planes.
Del año 2000 al 2008 han pasado 8 años. Y lo que sí he notado.
From 2000 to 2008, already 8 years have passed. I noticed that as time passes by, I've been filming entities and crafts that not only are amazing,
No solo extraordinarias, sino que nos llevan a una enorme reflexión.
but even lead the whole humanity and myself to deeply reflect and question us. Are we visited? Are any beings coming from the stars visiting us?
The deliberate movement of these spherical flying objects is clear from these extraordinary images. We can see a metallic sphere slow down and almost stop to let a plane that was crossing its route pass by. Once the plane has passed, the sphere once again starts to move in a more jerky way. These continual changes in speed almost seem to be a demonstration for the benefit of Gil's camera. In this other video by Arturo Robles Gil, we can see another example of the incredible technical skill of the spheres. At times, the spheres follow the planes. The dynamics of the film seem to indicate that the people on board don't realize what is happening. The people who study these phenomena don't really know what these spheres are, what they're for, or who made them. But it is obvious that whoever it is, they are increasingly less interested in hiding them.
Estas gentes, que sean las que sean, están viniendo.
I think that these beings, whoever they are, show themselves all the time.
We often see them.
Eso nos está enseñando.
This is probably because they are teaching us to become accustomed to their presence, not to be afraid.
Al contrario, yo creo que se están dejando ver para...
On the contrary, I believe that they show themselves so that soon, perhaps quite soon,
En no mucho tiempo se haga un contacto.
there will be a direct contact and they will be able to show themselves more clearly.
As we can see from the images, at times the objects are bright and luminous, at other times they are metallic and opaque. This is clear evidence of their multiform nature, the manifestation of a technology that is still beyond our understanding. These photos, taken in Mexico, show a group of metallic spheres in flight. They are amongst the clearest pictures ever taken. The author is the engineer Franklin Rojas, and the photos were taken in 2006. The similarity with the spheres photographed by the Hispanic-American contactee Paul Villa in New Mexico in 1966 is extraordinary. Curiously, exactly 40 years have passed between the two series of photos. The movement of this sphere is another clear example of the ease with which they maneuver in flight. It's difficult to say that the object is a balloon. The difference in the movement is obvious. Its flight is controlled and not caused by the wind. When it stops almost completely, it's even more difficult to say that. When it's filmed at the same time as balloons, the difference is even more evident. Salvador Guerrero has been a vigilante for many years, and he is the author of numerous very important films, which are now part of the history of the UFO phenomenon.
Y es una satisfacción.
Why do I enjoy it? Not because I want to be the best, but one of the many people who have proof of the UFO phenomenon,
Que está la expectativa.
who are waiting for the UFO to show themselves. There are people who film birds, who film hurricanes, and people who film UFO, unidentified objects.
Often the spheres appear in formations, sometimes numerous, and it was Salvador Guerrero who filmed this document, 6 spheres in a J shape flying over Mexico City.
When I come across these objects, it is very exciting for me to be able to film them, not only to talk about them, but to be able to record them on video using modern technology.
On June the 24th, 2005, in the town of Jalapa, in the Veracruz region of Mexico, the governor, Don Fidel Herrera Beltran, is about to take part in an official ceremony. Policemen, journalists, and the public are all present. Suddenly, above them, they see the spheres of light. The governor also sees them and shouts, "It's the Martians!" Certainly, amongst the phenomena linked to the spheres, one of the most spectacular is the flotillas. The films by Arturo Robles Gil are undeniable evidence. In his video taken on the 21st of September 2007, the presence of clouds and the zoomed images give even more the perception of the background where the incredible sighting is taking place. The formations continue to appear. there are more and more of them, and they are increasingly frequent. Hill carries on filming in a punctual and constant way, thus proving that the phenomenon is continuous. This event is now evident in various parts of the world. Italy is also overflown by these fascinating squadrons of flying spheres. One of the most prolific authors of films is the Tuscan Antonio Urzi, who from a young age seemed to be under the attention of these mysterious means of non-terrestrial aviation. Urzi has shot many films of flying saucers, but his exceptional video repertoire also contains spheres and flotillas. A contactee case that is attracting the attention of the main researchers and international media. These are a few images of flotillas that Urzi filmed in Italy. But the most striking video that he caught was on the 4th of September 2009 in downtown Milan, near the famous Alla Scala theatre. He sighted a not-so-large flotilla flying over the buildings. Despite many people passing by, no one really looked up or stopped by to see what was happening. Fortunately, after a few minutes, a cameraman of Rai region Lombardy passed by. Antonio managed to grab his attention, so the exceptional event was also filmed by the professional camera of the Rai operator.
C'è la flotilla, filmo con la telecamera. Corri, vieni qua, ci sono tutte le sfere come in Messico. Vai laggiù sul punto là. Corri. Vedi? Ce la fai a vedere?
It was peculiar and self-explanatory, the fact that a girl stooped to pass below the camera operator without showing the slightest interest in the event happening. Antonio eventually also shot the street where the event occurred. The contactees have often said that the flying spheres are remote-controlled survey probes that also have controls and monitoring equipment for flying saucers.
El fenómeno de las esferas es
The phenomenon of spheres is strictly connected with the unidentified flying objects.
Tenemos videos, incluso en Italia, Antonio Urzi.
In Italy, Antonio Urzi filmed unidentified flying objects,
Donde pueden ver esferas.
In which we can see spheres alongside these spaceships.
In the film that Urzi took on December the 3rd, 2008, at a certain point, we can clearly see these spheres alongside what is obviously a flying saucer. It's a dark color, which makes us think it must be metallic. It's not the first time that Urzi has recorded this phenomenon. In June 2004, he filmed a sphere near a silvery disc. Urzi has also filmed single flying spheres. In February 2009, Urzi went to Nevada, to the town of Laughlin, as guest of an international UFO congress. An event that lasts an entire week and that every year brings together the leading world experts on UFOs and related phenomena. On the morning of the 27th of February, Antonio and his wife Simona sighted and filmed a white sphere flying right above the convention center where the Congress was taking place. It is a rather rare occurrence that these objects show themselves in places where there are events dedicated to them.
È fermo, eh? Guarda l'oggetto. È andato via subito. Perché no... Sì.
But Urzi's contact experience is so exceptional that the happening took place again a few months later. In June 2009, in fact, Antonio was in Istanbul, Turkey, again as guest of an international UFO congress. During the event, he sighted a large sphere of light and started filming. His cries attracted many people from the audience that were listening to the speakers of the congress. Thus, dozens of people witnessed Urzi's sighting. This fact had such a large impact that it attracted the attention of Turkish media, who made many reports of the event. Before Turkey, Antonio had already shot other films of flying spheres. This video was taken on May the 24th, 2009. The sphere is flying over the blocks of flats in Cinisello, Balsamo. Just when it goes out of sight, Antonio, his wife Simona, and her little sister run to another window of the flat to be able to observe it a little longer.
Questo è bello, eh? Hai visto roba?
Ah, l'ho preso.
Urzi follows the sphere until it disappears into the distance.
Faccio il frame la differenza con l'aereo.
The next images of an airplane show the obvious difference between the two vehicles. In July 2009, Urzi was in Argentina for a series of conferences. During a visit to Capilla del Monte, an area where UFOs are often seen, he filmed this sphere with unusual characteristics.
È una palla grandissima, bella. Guarda.
Ah, ce l'ho visto.
Bueno.
His wife Simona and other friends are with him. The film becomes even more interesting when the sphere goes behind the bushes. At the end of the video, Urzi also films the other witnesses.
Mira. Mira dietro, Simo, è fantastico. No, è muy linda, eh? È una palla grossa, enorme, eh? Fermi? Los testigos.
Once, Urzi came back to Italy on July the 20th, 2009, during a visit to his family in Toscana. He films again a flying sphere overflying the skies.
Hemos observado también, por ejemplo, cuando hay flotillas, cuando hay...
We also observed that in flotillas with hundreds or thousands of objects, when they are very close one to each other, they move in a swinging way, as if connected by a magnetic force.
Hemos observado las esferas.
We've seen these spheres moving forward, thousands of them, all at the same time and following the same direction. We sighted them going into the clouds.
En nubes, dentro de una nube. Las hemos observado, pues realmente incluso De acuerdo al testimonio de...
According to several witnesses, they've been sighted even inside homes.
Todo ello me hace pensar.
All this makes me think about it as a phenomenon to investigate.
Me parece a mí que no son tripuladas.
It seems to me that these spheres have no pilot on board. I believe they are used sometimes individually, sometimes in groups, to make observations and specific investigations.
The appearance of the EBANIs, which is the Spanish acronym of Unidentified Aerial Biological Entities, the incredible snake-like flying objects, has complicated the incredible phenomenon of flying spheres even further. The first sightings date from the 90s. Since the year 2000, they have continued to appear, giving the scholars a really difficult problem to solve and, above all, to accept. In fact, the phenomenon is completely beyond our recognized parameters for aircraft technology. With the EBANIs, the boundaries between biological nature and technological nature seem to blend.
Tiene un comportamiento como el de un ser vivo.
Which is to say that it behaves as if it were a living being.
Se mueven de manera orgánica.
These EBANIs move as if they were enormous worms in an organic way. There are some really exceptional films of these objects.
In August 2007, Arturo Robles Hill filmed a spectacular EBANI as it emitted the spheres. As the object moves into the clouds, we can see how high it is, and consequently, just how huge it is. An EBANI of the same color was filmed again in Mexico by Vianney Lopez on the 4th of October 2009 in the city of Guadalajara. You can clearly outline the EBANI moving within the clouds. Hill too has filmed these serpent-shaped objects literally entering inside the clouds. In this film, dated the 5th of August 2007, there are even 2 EBANIs. Once again, on November the 17th, 2008, Hill filmed another EBANI emitting spheres. This time, the apparatus is an irregular shape, and it clearly shows the polyhedric and multiform nature of these flying biological entities. These films suggest that the EBANIs are a sort of aircraft carrier that transports the spheres.
Pienso que estos cuerpos enormes de gusanos.
I think that these enormous bodies, like snakes, are the way in which the spheres are transported and moved around.
Es mucho más fácil poder mover a un centenar o...
It's much easier to move hundreds or thousands of spheres in a solid, closed body rather than individually.
Entonces, yo pienso que...
So, I think that the EBANIs are the origin of the phenomenon of the flotillas and of the flying spheres themselves.
Often, the EBANIs are accompanied by just one sphere that the researchers call the century.
En diferentes ocasiones han sido grabadas juntas.
In several occasions, the EBANIs and spheres have been filmed together, and we also observed that in many cases they are accompanied by a great sphere, a royal craft that's always there. I don't know why, but we can see it in many videos.
At other times, they appear together with the flotillas, as we can see in this Mexican film from 2007. We can see the phenomena progressively taking shape in this film by the Mexican Octavio Fernandez. Octavio also filmed these abanis in various colors. Together with Hill's footage, the abanis filmed by Fernandez are among the most numerous in the world. At times, the abanis, like the spheres, cross the routes of aircraft.
Abro mi toma. Mira, el avión pasó cerca. ¿Te diste cuenta más al frente?
Considering the incredulity and the amazement of the researchers themselves, it is understandable that the public thinks of the abanis as balloons floating through the air. Everything we've seen about the flying spheres already seems complex and incredible. But in May 2009, the Mexican skywatcher Alfredo Carrillo filmed a phenomenon that has never been seen before. All the objects are dark-colored, the witness is filming against the sun. But there are more surprises to come. The event is also being filmed at the same time by another witness, the Mexican Pedro Hernandez. Initially, Hernandez, just when he's filming an aircraft flying past, sees the same flying object that Carrillo has filmed, but with the sunlight at his back. So the objects are illuminated, and the video gives a better image of the spheres than we've ever seen before. Probably, Hernandez is closer to the phenomenon he is filming. The object starts to slow its spinning motion, and then the incredible scene continues. Slowly, a flotilla begins to form. When the film ends, Hernandez comments on the incredible scene he's just witnessed.
Aquí atrás de mí. Here behind me there were UFOs moving around, really beautiful. They were yellow, they were really beautiful, and they were here, just behind me.
Comparing the two videos of Carrillo and Hernandez, we can clearly see that it really is the same phenomenon. The statements by witnesses, the investigations, the exceptional images leave little room for theories of fraud, mass hallucinations, or pranks. It is really difficult to think that the spheres are not real or the result of intelligent life.
Las esferas son un fenómeno inteligente, no me cabe la menor duda. Y nosotros hemos acumulado mucho.
The spheres are an intelligent phenomenon, I have no doubt, and we have accumulated lots of film where we can see this intelligent movement. They are part of a project that is even greater than they are. That's why we should believe that we are dealing with a phenomenon that shows the interest towards and the investigation upon us, human beings.
Perhaps one day, this reality will be accepted by the authorities, or perhaps it will be the phenomenon itself that forces us to accept it without waiting for human decisions. it wouldn't be the first time. In the past, events have changed human history. Will we be taken by surprise this time too? In South England, for a few decades, an incredible phenomenon has been taking place, fascinating and unsettling at the same time: the crop circles. The message transmitted by these fascinating figures could have a great value for humanity. What if it were a new attempt at communication? Such a theory is definitely revolutionary, but there are strong obstacles deriving from the skepticism that circulates around the crop circles phenomenon. Most people are convinced that the pictograms are man-made, a trick organized by groups of jokers. This is the case. Never mind if enormous figures and extremely complex drawings appear overnight. So far, the large amount of data and information gathered and documented brought no results. However, in 2007, something incredible and totally unexpected happened. An event that shook the scientific approach to the phenomenon, strongly rebounding the theory that it is not a human work, but rather a form of communication made by a non-terrestrial intelligence. Is it possible that an alien civilization is trying to talk to us? During the night of the 6th and 7th of July 2007, a researcher named Winston Keach placed a series of cameras on the hill above the East Field near Silbury Hill, an area in the south of England which has always been popular for the crop circle phenomenon. Other researchers joined Mr. Keach. Gary King, a lawyer, very keen on this phenomenon, and his girlfriend Paula.
And at about 1:30 a.m. we went along to Knapp Hill. Arriving there, we met up with the cameraman that I'd met earlier in the day in the cafe, and he had a set of cameras with him on top of the hill, and he explained to me that he had some more cameras set up in his vehicle which he'd pulled through and parked on the hill overlooking Eastfield as well. When I got there, he told me that the two cameras that were in the car were infrared and visible light capabilities and very sensitive. Also, the cameras he had were on the hill with him was a still camera which had a long exposure, an image enhancing device, and also another very light sensitive camera. He showed us a scan of the field with the image enhancer, and we could see clearly at that time, about 1:35, that there were no formations in the field of Eastfield or the surrounding fields next to him. We sat there then until about 3 o'clock just chatting and talking, and then just after 3 there was a big white flash of light that completely encompassed the landscape. That reminded Wynne that he needed to go down to his vehicle and change the tapes over. So he went down to the vehicle, changed the tapes and came back. And we sat there then just talking for about 20 minutes further. And then just as some light creeped in, just as some clouds must have moved away, there was a very imperceptible shadow that we could see on Eastfield. So I asked Wynne to look through his camera on the hill. He opened the viewfinder and looked through it and then said to us, "You better get up and look at this." And it was at that point, which was about 3:45 in the morning, that we discovered there was a very significant formation in Eastfield. He carried on filming, and we waited for the light to come up some more, took pictures and danced around. We were very elated, and we waited until the light came up a little more, and then Paula and I drove down to the end of the field while Wynne continued filming, and he filmed us as being the first persons that walked into the formation at about 4:30. On later analysis of the footage that was taken in the car, there were two cameras running constantly all night from about 11 o'clock until 5 o'clock. So it completely covers the field. If any light would have been in that field, it would have been detected. And we've got cars and vehicles driving past at various times that are all logged, and the times of them are logged. So we know that the tapes are running for that period of time. There's about 16 hours of footage in total.
Some circles in the formation follow the uneven terrain and are deformed in order to appear perfectly round from above. A further evidence that indicates the inexplicable nature of crop circles.
Nobody could have been doing this formation. If there would have been 1/200th of a candle light of light in that field, these cameras would have picked it up. And plus, I feel that we would have seen it from the hill as well, because we were constantly maintaining an observation down on this field. Quite apart from the logistical aspect of making the formation like this, the complexity, the size of the formation, the fact that the circles are ovals so that they look circular from the air.
However, there is more to be surprised about. When they watched the recorded tapes, Gary King and the others realized that the cameras had caught the beam of light that reminded Wynne to change the tape.
When we analysed those tapes, we found that the first visible signs of the formation through the lenses of those cameras was actually at 3:20 a.m. and that the light flash that was picked up on the end of the first tape registered for 3.5 milliseconds as an EM pulse, which is very similar to a bolt of lightning. And it was 7 minutes after that, at 3:20, that the first signs of the formation were picked up by the cameras in the car. But we again didn't see them until about 20 minutes after that. As far as I know, this is the only time that anything like this, where continuous footage, continuous tapes have been running all night and captured the field and eliminated any evidence of anybody being in there with any laser alignment measurement devices or lights of any kind. As far as I know, this is the best footage and most comprehensive footage available of when a crop circle takes.
A crop circle appeared in the space of one night. An incredible event caught by Winston Keach's cameras and witnessed by Gary King and Paula. Finally, this is the definite proof that crop circles have an alien origin. What happened in Eastfield on July the 7th, 2007 is bound to be remembered as one of the most significant events since the beginning of the phenomenon in the 70s. Moreover, another consideration is added to this. If the real origin of the crop circles were human, we would be facing a repeated act of vandalism against the owners of the fields in which the pictograms occur. But so far, no one has ever taken any legal action against unknown persons for the damages suffered. So the question arises, is it possible that the British farmers themselves may have the perception of the unusual and complex nature of the crop circles? Michael Glickman is one of the main historical investigators of the phenomenon. He tried several times to convince the owners of the fields on which the pictograms appeared to denounce the damage suffered to the authorities.
They're frightened. I've been to the farmers and I've said, here is a photograph of what you have got in your field. And they go, I don't want to see, don't show me this. They're scared.
In addition to the claims by Michael Glickman, the direct testimony of the owner of a field where in 2007 a pictogram appeared is particularly interesting.
I never saw anybody make it, and it appeared, I think, in the middle of the night. It's a real work of art, very precisely created and very accurately. And it was in a crop of wheat, which was flattened onto the ground, and it makes it very difficult to harvest it when it's like that. So I estimate that it was probably about an acre of wheat which was spoilt. When I first looked at it, it looked extremely disappointing. It just looked like a bit of vandalism, destruction. My first reaction was to prevent anybody from coming to see it, because I thought they would do a lot more damage by walking into the field and traipsing about in my crop. But a few people arrived and they were very persuasive, and so I allowed them to come in and have a look around. And they were all very nice people. I think the most interesting thing about the crop circle was the people who came to see it, actually. We had some extraordinary people, and they were all convinced that there was some outside power from outer space coming to create this thing. And it wasn't until we saw the photographs taken from the air that we realized what a beautiful thing it was. No, never forget. And luckily we've got lots of pictures. A bit disappointing to look at on the ground because you couldn't really see the formation, but the photographs taken from airplanes are absolutely amazing. And it was such a huge area, and it's very difficult to imagine how human beings could make that, because there would be so much measuring involved, and none of us can understand.
Not all farmers, though, were that keen. In August 2007, a formation had not been visited by anyone because of the violent opposition of the owner of the land. The farmer fiercely threw out anyone who approached his land with the intention to visit the pictogram, and harvested it a few hours after its appearance.
We've just been thrown out from the property in which the formation appeared, near the city of Marlborough. We came to this airfield to hire an ultralight aircraft and film the figure from the air, which will unfortunately disappear in a few hours. A figure over 100 meters across. A figure it has not been possible to investigate, but on the basis of what we have seen, it seems extraordinary. I hope that when we do fly over the area, the figure will still be there. Let's hope we're a little lucky.
Luckily, it was possible to photograph the circle before it was removed by the threshers. In fact, the wheat had not been harvested yet, and so the pictures show the figure imprinted in the field in all its beauty and harmony. It stands out as the circle is very close to the farm. Actually, it would have been virtually impossible to make that gigantic symbol at night, and especially without letting the owner of the field notice anything. For a few decades, the crop circles have been causing excitement, fascination, divisions, and curiosity. The simplest questions have not yet found an answer. Who produces these designs, and why? The answers of science and of hoaxes. Groups of counterfeiters who make pictograms are not sufficient. Too often, the most spectacular formations have appeared over one single night, maybe even in bad weather, such as the famous one of Milk Hill in 2001. The greatest pictogram ever appeared until then, consisting of 409 circles occupying an area of 90,000 square meters. Such events give even more credit to the theory of the non-human origin of the crop circles. A phenomenon that could really be the manifestation of a project concerning the entire human race? Charles Mallet, researcher for many years and owner of the Silent Circle Cafe, the most important meeting and information point for the scholars of this phenomenon, has no doubt about it.
For me, I'm personally 100% sure that elements of this phenomenon represent a direct interaction from somewhere else up here, and it seems to be connected with the earth, with ourselves, our own metaphysical or spiritual development, the evolution of our species.
Once upon a time, there was a people who possessed a considerable knowledge, a civilization whose messages have been handed over to us through time, a people whose prophecies have impressively started to come true. The Mayas. The eternal charm of mystery encloses the deep knowledge of this ancient civilization, whose memory has been lost in the mists of time. Among the most important Mayan documents where their prophecies are reported, there is certainly the Dresden Code. This is one of the 3 existing codes which survived the destructive fury of the conquistadors. Called after the German city where it's kept, the Dresden Code is the most informative one. It contains forecasts anticipating with astonishing accuracy some astronomical phenomena and events that will take place even in the distant future. In this code is held one of the most impressive astronomical predictions of the Maya. In fact, they predicted centuries in advance, with an error of just a few seconds, the eclipse of the 11th of August 1991, one of the most spectacular of the last century that took place in Mexico. This eclipse is associated with a figure that represents death, sitting on a throne of bones. It symbolizes the old age, the era that is ending. The prediction or prophecy says, Woe to you people of the earth, the end of the jaguar nights will come, together with the beginning of a new era that will rise from the ashes of the previous one. It will be the time of the encounter with the lords of the stars. Therefore, the eclipse is considered by the Mayas as the starting point of the process bringing the end of the old era and the encounter with the masters from the stars. Could it mean the contact between humanity and an alien civilization coming from the cosmos? Will it be through this contact that mankind will live the new golden age anticipated by the Mayas?
On the 11th of August 1991, a disc-shaped unidentified object was sighted in the skies over Mexico City. It was the beginning of a long series of sightings by witnesses of an unprecedented wave of UFOs along the whole Mexican territory. Afterwards, incredible waves also occurred in other parts of the world. Like Belgium and ex-USSR countries, increasing the general attention on the UFO phenomenon like never before.
And what about the crop circles? Remarkably, since that year, the circles started appearing with greater frequency, and the figures became more complex and fascinating. It was as if both phenomena obey the same command, as if they were part of the same project. Almost using the same language of the Mayan prophecy contained in the Dresden Code, the Lords of the Circles put a signature on the English fields by using a symbol that belongs to the Sumerian civilization. It is called Din-Jir and appeared in 1992, incorporated into a pictogram representing the solar logos, which also means union of heaven and earth. The symbol Din-Jir means the just people traveling on celestial ships of fire. Who are the just people, and what about the celestial ships of fire? Is it a coincidence that the Din-Jir appears together with another symbol that indicates link, union between heaven and earth? The similarity with what was announced by the Mayas is extraordinary, but there is more. Why a Sumerian symbol and not a Mayan one? What is the connection between this symbol, the Dresden Code prophecy, and UFOs? The answer might come from the experience of an American policeman, Lonnie Zamora, on the 24th of April 1964, near the town of Socorro, New Mexico.
In 1964, New Mexico, the policeman Lonnie Zamora witnessed the landing of an object of unknown nature. He talked about it to his colleagues who arrived soon after the object had flown away. The ground was deeply embossed. That confirmed the landing of the object. On the side of the UFO, Zamora saw a particular symbol, a sort of arrow inside a semicircle. When his colleagues arrived a few minutes after the happening, the ground was still hot and the policeman was visibly shaken.
On the side of the ovoid UFO was imprinted a symbol that Zamora would never forget, the Din-Jir. Incredibly, this symbol appeared again in the summer of 1999, inside a giant pictogram about 300 meters long. There were also, in greater numbers than the first time, the symbols of union between heaven and earth. But the connection between crop circles and what was announced by the prophecy of the Dresden Code regarding the Masters from the Stars is not just restricted to these occurrences. Clearer and far more important events started taking place in 2000. On the 13th of August 2000, near the Chilbolton Military Radio Telescope, appeared a beautiful crop circle that could not be deciphered. Its proximity to an installation supervised 24 hours a day makes it difficult, if not impossible, to think about a human origin. Its explanation arrived unexpectedly the year after. In fact, in the same field, on August 14, 2001, a new pictogram appeared. This time, however, it was not the usual symbol. This is in fact a face with clear humanoid features, designed with the same technique used for the old black and white photos of newspapers. A set of points where the difference of width and distance between them creates the image. a technique never seen before in crop circles. By applying a graphic filter on the photo, more details become clear.
If we apply a Gaussian filter 6.6 pixels wide, you see how light and shadow are outlined, proving that that being was alive when the picture was shot or when they impressed this image into the wheat field.
Just 5 days later, on August the 19th, a few dozen meters away from the alien face, an even more shocking figure appeared. It seemed the reply to the binary code message transmitted by the Arecibo radio telescope in 1974. It was right in that year, in fact, that Frank Drake, scientist and director of Arecibo at the time, together with the famous astronomer Carl Sagan, tried to communicate with a group of stars identified as M13. It sent out a message of introduction of mankind to a hypothetical alien civilization, indicating data on our numerical system, on the basic atoms of terrestrial life, on the structure of human DNA, and of our solar system with the Earth's relative position. They also included data relative to the Arecibo radio telescope. According to calculations, the message should have taken 25,000 years to reach its destination, and the same again to receive a reply. A really long time, let alone the fact that no one could tell whether that group of stars really hosted a supposed alien civilization. These circumstances make even more startling the appearance of the Chilbolton pictogram. Is it possible that someone received our message and replied to it much earlier than expected?
We have the same numerical system with 0 and 1. Therefore, the answers are universal. The basic atoms of life are the same, but in their body there is also silicon. Then, where the chemistry of DNA is mentioned, we also notice the fact that all the components of our DNA are clearly identical to theirs. This shows that we come from the same universal principle. When they mention their genome, they tell us that they have 1,048,000 sequences more than us. This means that they are much more evolved than us, which is normal, since they have been able to achieve such a development. To prepare a similar message, they ought to have a greater evolution. Then they provide other details, telling us that they live in 2 planets and 4 moons, namely in 6 different worlds. And finally, they refer to the instrument used to send out this message. Surprisingly, we found that the figure representing this device appeared 1 year before in the same place. Thus, they notified that in the same place they would have given a new message. The way in which these beings speak to us needs to be carefully interpreted.
The elements involved in the Chilbolton pictograms are astonishing. Is this really the reply of an alien civilization? Is it fake or real? The Mayan Dresden Code announces that, starting from the 1991 eclipse, it has begun a process that will lead humanity to the encounter with the Lords of the Stars. Are these events part of it? 1 year after the Arecibo reply, exactly on the 15th of August 2002, in the fields of Crabwood Farm, west of Winchester, there appeared an even more amazing crop circle. It depicts an alien who holds a CD on which is carved a binary code message. This is the ASCII programming language for computers. Some researchers have decoded it.
This figure tells us several things, very interesting indeed. It tells us, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises.
Yo no sé si esto se dirige hacia lo que significa.
I don't know if this is related to what is, meaning global warming, or to wrong messages that they have given us, or if on the other hand it is directly related to the beginning of the war in Iraq. Given that this warning, this message, appeared in August 2002. Then, in the same message, it says, much pain but still time. Again, we can attribute this to both issues, either what was happening on Earth or the Iraqi war. Then it goes on to say, believe there is good out there, which is the most important phrase, because it tells us that God exists, it tells us that the good, the upright exist, that they are our friends. I reckon it is an optimistic message for that reason. And finally it tells us, the message is closing. We don't know if this means that the communication would end there. I definitely hope not.
The so-called alien face from Crabwood Farm has raised much controversy about its authenticity. Yet, after many years, nobody has shown it to be a fake, and no one has claimed its creation. The complexity of its realization, simulating the structure of a television frame, the three-dimensional effect of the figure, the difficulty of achieving the binary code in a spiral, as in real compact discs, are all elements that make the hoax theory very unlikely. There is also another important element emerging from the encoding of the message. Some statements remind us of the Mayan prophecies. The phrase, "there is good out there," confirms the very Mayan concept of a universe governed by firm laws of harmony. Much pain but still time seems to emphasize what was predicted by the prophecies on the years preceding the date of 2012. Finally, the conduit is closing seems a direct reference to the end of the cycle on the 21st of December 2012. Is it possible that the Mayas held knowledge coming from an alien civilization? This theory is definitely fascinating, and the data collected seem to collaborate it. Data supported by the extraordinary increase of unidentified flying object sightings all over the world. It is getting harder to deny the anomalous nature of this phenomenon. The message is definitely important for the future of humanity. In such difficult times of our history, it could be a means to help us in overcoming hardship. Will mankind appreciate its worth?